Hi, it's Amy Shaw, the Soul Whisperer here. I really wanted to come outside to talk about this, and it's still winter. It's February 1st today. Still a little wintry. It's been a little windy. Makes it hard to record videos when the weather doesn't really permit you to go outside too much. But I definitely didn't want to sit in my car for this, and I kind of didn't really want to be in my house for this. I just thought it was important to get outside. So a little bit windy today. Hopefully it doesn't affect the noise. It's definitely a little overcast today. So you'll have to just bear with me as I get through this. It's a little bit touchy, difficult topic, especially for me. This is really coming from my heart, really, at the moment. I have a very close family member who's in the end stages of life, and he's dealing with cancer, and I did some shamanic work this morning, and I'm contemplating if I need to actually physically be present for the process, and what all that might entail for me personally in terms of, making that happen. It's a little bit of a challenge because of my personal circumstance at the moment. But it really brings up a lot of stuff that I just want to open up and share my heart on. Stephen Jenkinson is one of my mentors. I don't have a one-on-one relationship with him, as a lot of people don't have with some of their mentors these days, as we're exposed to the internet and these electronic means of communication. We are kind of losing a little bit of that one-on-one relationship, and in exchange maybe we're gaining exposure to people we may not ordinarily have exposure to. So I'm grateful for that, but I'm saying that to say that he's a mentor of mine, but he probably has no idea of who I even am. So I learn from a distance. I watch his videos and his talks and read his books, and I've seen him speak in person, and I just find him somebody that inspires me a lot. Part of the reason for that is, as many of you know, if you've been around my channel for a while, in 2003, I was diagnosed with stage 3C inflammatory breast cancer, and in 2006, that metastasized to distant organs. So I'm still considered metastatic. Cancer is an incurable disease. I still go through chemotherapy every 3 weeks. As a matter of fact, I have treatment tomorrow. I basically have been in cancer treatment since 2003. So in May, that will be 15 years now that I've been going through treatment. I've come very close to death a couple of different times, mostly from complications of treatment. So that experience alone has really initiated me, not so much to the shamanic path. I think I was initiated to the shamanic path long before cancer. Cancer was the way the spirits really shoved me hard in that direction and didn't give me any other place to go but down that path if I wanted to keep my life. So in exchange for my life, I gave a life of servitude, a life of service in shamanic practice. I'm okay with that. I accept that. But along with that, for a lot of us who are on the shamanic path, because we have had to face death, we've had near-death experiences and have brushed the cheeks of death, French kissed death in the mouth, wiped the tears of death off of people's faces, because we've been in these places in our lives. A lot of us are called, for whatever reason, to that work, the work of death. And I think out of everything that I've been called to do in my life, doing death work, or what I would call soul midwifery, is assisting people in transitioning from this life and this body into the next life, the spiritual realm, is probably the most sacred of all of the work that I do. And I mean, it's all sacred. It's also in some ways the hardest, because it really does require me to go to places within myself that very, 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 very few people have gone to or been willing to go to within themselves. So while it's a familiar place, it's not a place that I necessarily exercise on a daily basis. And I guess really what's on my heart right now, what I really wanted to talk about, is just this denial of death that's so pervasive in our culture, and how it really, really does make the shamanic work, the soul midwifery, the hard work. People come and they want soul retrieval, they want extraction, they want, all these things. They're suffering and struggling, and they have symptoms, and they just want to have their symptoms alleviated, and rightfully so. But dealing with death is a whole different level of the work. So yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit about that today, and point out the fact that the work is hard because of that, because we live in a death-denying culture, and it doesn't allow people the dignity of death. It doesn't allow people the sacredness of death. It kicks and it screams and it makes it profane. It makes it a victimization. It makes it everything that we don't want, all the way up until the dying breath sometimes. And when people suddenly pass, they don't necessarily have the opportunity to grapple with these issues, because life is just taken from them in an instant, and then the people that love them are left to deal with the shock and the grief of that. But when people are tasked with the act of dying, and usually that comes through some type of terminal dis-ease, it's a lot more challenging. It really requires us to step up to the plate in a whole different way. To face mortality, to accept, the finite nature of our incarnations here, to reevaluate our lives and everything we've contributed, and also to face our relationships in honesty and integrity, and to wonder and ask, how our loved ones are going to carry us as we pass on into the next life, how they're going to remember us and carry us, and the stories they're going to tell about us, and all those things. It brings up a lot of issues for a lot of people. And anybody that's done hospice work will tell you, that the family dysfunction, can potentially really demonstrate itself during the time of somebody's passing, a family member, because family members all kind of come together and rally around the dying person, and it's an intense emotional time, and it just potentially can trigger and aggravate a lot of old wounds and unresolved issues for people. And so yes, it is true that all these things can come into play, but in a sense that's the gift of the dying, right? Is that they expose, they sort of force us to examine ourselves and to be in a relationship with people that we may be avoiding at other times. And if we choose to be absent from that process, then it brings up issues even from a distance, about guilt and all those kinds of things. I mean, if you've been through it, you've lost a loved one, to a rather slow process of dying, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, and it is a gift to be able to have that opportunity to say goodbye and to walk alongside and to usher people, into that transition in their own lives. But it's not an easy work. It's just not. And even for the dying, who often aren't really allowed, they aren't given the permission to die with dignity. They're expected to long suffer, to, fight all the way up until their dying breath, to try every last measure possible. And I've seen it because I've been around for 15 years. I've been around the cancer culture, and I've been through it, and now it's hitting somebody very, very near and dear and close to me, and I see it happening even then. But I've seen parents with sick children forcing them, in essence, to endure suffering upon suffering upon suffering in this unrelenting hope that they can save their child's life. And, as a parent, I do fundamentally understand this. I understand it. But, the shamanic part of me, the shaman side of me, I also, because of the work that I do, I understand the spiritual realm, and I understand how eternal our souls really are, and how thin the veil truly is between this life, this ordinary 3D reality, and the spiritual realm. I understand it. So the transition itself, the fear itself, isn't there for me. And I understand how it is for other people who haven't made those spiritual connections, and they don't know. They're sort of going in blind, and they're operating completely on faith. And even Christian people, people that fully believe, in their whole hearts and souls that their loved one's going to heaven to be with Jesus. I've seen them, even into the last moments of somebody's life, lose faith and struggle against, and want to strip the experience for the dying of that dying to be okay, to be sacred, to be a culmination, really, of a life's work. In Stephen Jenkinson's documentary, Grief Walker, he talks in there about how the task of the dying person is to set the table, in essence, the table from which loved ones are going to sit and dine. And I really like that analogy, that metaphor, because it paints a picture that, dying is a work. It is a work. It is a process. It is something that each and every one of us will be tasked with. And how we frame that, the table that we set, how we set it, the paradigm that we put it in, the perspective that we put it around it, all of these things matter, because those around us are learning from us. In a sense, we're going ahead of them and showing them the way, the path of how to die and be sacred in the work of it. And I think a lot of people in our culture, they get disconnected from that. They see dying as something that we don't want to do. It's not okay, and it's a tragedy, and it's a loss. And, in actuality, we all are going to die. It's just the fact of life. So this death denial often becomes a part of the work as shamans that we have to do. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do that tenderly, to gently clear out somebody's eyes so that they can see the truth, and allow them to experience that loss of hope, that grief that comes before the grief, I guess, in essence. It's a tender work. It's hard. It's especially hard because, like I said, we know what's on the other side. We do this work every day, and so for us it doesn't feel like it's that big a deal. To be tender and sensitive to people who don't have that faith, who don't know, and to whom it is a big deal. Their lives are significantly changed and altered after the death of a loved one. A child, a spouse, a parent. It does change lives. It changes lives. Profoundly. And to be sensitive that, you know, to restore the person to their right to the grief, to their right to the loss, and at the same time to hold the sacred space for the dying and allow them, to give them permission to stop suffering, to stop trying every known medical procedure on the planet to try to gain a foothold and regain the hope that dying's not going to happen to me. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what more I can say about it. At this point, I just wanted to get this on video, put it out there, talk about this aspect of shamanic work that some of us have been called to, how seriously I take it, what profound work it is, how difficult it is at times, how it is hitting me personally within my own close family at the moment. And I just want to encourage you that if you're doing this work, thank you. We need you. If you're not doing this work, maybe think about why. Are you open to it? So that's all I have to say, and I appreciate you guys as always watching. If you have questions or comments, you can leave them down below the video. If you want to reach out to me, there's a lot of different ways you can. And yeah, for the moment, I'm just being very introspective and feeling into this space as I midwife somebody that I love dearly, from a distance at the moment, as I contemplate whether my presence is needed in the actual. I'm just contemplating these things and sitting with them and feeling the weight of them. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching.